We move to the third speaker, and the last one is Dr. Hans Borchgrevink. He's chair of the working group monitoring of the EU steering group on human resources and mobility. The title is Introducing Gender Indicators into European Union Innovation Union Scoreboard. Please.
I'm taking you through some something. I first say that the Research Council of Norway, which I represent, is funding some 30% of the total public spending on R&D in Norway, and that is by strong competition to keep up quality. And there are several policy issues at stake, and that has led to that since 2003 there are more scientific publications with international collaboration than without. I think that is the development we can see in several countries, and therefore I give you first some slides which I think are representative for several nations, and then we'll see the consequence for the percentage of women researchers. Foreigners are coming to Norway, especially the young ones, so that by now 33% of the PhD degrees taken in Norway are by foreigners, and that has been steadily increasing. In some fields it's much higher. That has a very good impact on the citation index. So when you collaborate with internationally, the citation index inevitably goes up, and the power of your papers goes up, and probably then also the quality. But then when it comes to the fraction of men and women, you see men, the blue at the bottom, and then the addition red for women at the top. You see that it's approaching 50% women PhD degrees, and it's sort of flattened out on 46%, but what we see now for the first half of 2012 is that for the first time it's just over 50% women that take their doctoral degree in Norway. Norway has had for many years a policy pushing equality. We have a special Women in Science Committee and several initiatives. And these initiatives, then you might think that that has influenced positively, so that we might have more women grade A positions, more women professors than other people. And we don't. We have exactly the same scissors diagram as in she figures. So the far end of that, the right end of that diagram shows 21% of women at the professor level, and that has been increasing something like 1% per year for the last few years. But in spite of all these policy actions and the goodwill, that's the sort of, we're still at the sort of average level, which we can see from the she figures in Europe. And when it comes to professor for different fields, you can see to the left, we have full professors that have their main position as professors, and then we have Professor 2, which is a 20% part-time position that you can have combined with another position. So you see for humanities, it's close to 30% women on both in those professorships. When it comes to social sciences, it drops slightly. It's down to 10% when it goes to natural sciences. Engineering, it's below 10%. Medicine, it's a bit better. Agricultural, also a bit better. But in general, average 21%, and it's hard to understand why it is like this, and it shouldn't be like this. What now I take on the European Union hat. One of the big arguments that we can use for the politicians is the fact that Europe is a high-cost area. We have to have advanced research-based industry in order to be able to compete globally. And then we have to come up with research-based innovation. And what you see on this figure, which is the world's scientific output, is that Asia is climbing, and because of the big bulk of papers coming from Asia, the fraction of scientific papers from US, OECD and EU is falling as fraction of world output. And that means that we're on the losing side. So we have to do something about it. And there are several initiatives that politicians then have come up with to try to fight this. One, we have the framework program, but that's controlling only some 6 to 7% of governmental R&D in Europe. So it's a very small fraction. Then we try to harmonize issues so that the fact that we are many separate countries and that hampers the mobility and the collaboration, we try to harmonize that, making a European research area. And several initiatives for that should be in place by 2014. To try to push this, there is a committee called ERAC, European Research Area Committee, and that's reporting directly to the European Parliament and to the Council. So that's a powerful way. And now comes one of the interesting things. Under this ERAC, there are ERA working groups, so then only sort of 2 steps below the Parliament. And one of those working groups is the one I'm in, the Steering Group for Human Resource and Mobility, dealing with researcher recruitment and mobility, including gender. And we try to argue that we have to increase diversity, and then we increase scientific equality by utilizing women's potential. Now we're also planning the next framework program, the Horizon 2020. That also has an important element, the Marie Curie mobility schemes. But then, who's representing the 93% of governmental R&D? That's Science Europe that Per Omling was mentioning, and that is being slowly built up. And last week, they voted for having plans that there will be a new working group under Science Europe, which will be on gender and diversity, and it will be established spring 2013. So look out and try to get heavy people into that one. Last element, all this is monitored by indicators, partly by the so-called Innovation Union scoreboard, partly by something which is being built up, the ERA indicator system. And we need to introduce a gender indicator into this EU Innovation Union scoreboard. It's extremely important to have political power. Therefore, the working group on monitoring an indicator under this steering group, the working group which I am chairing, we looked into this. We found that there was no reason to look beyond the SHE figures, so that we looked into the SHE figures and tried to find what would be the politically most powerful indicator that we could choose, and we agreed to go for % women in grade A researcher positions. That is the rightmost part of the scissors figure, which shows that women is only around 20% in most European countries at grade A positions. And that indicator was approved by the steering group this spring. We proposed it to different people and committees, and it's supported by most. We haven't got it into the Innovation Union scoreboard yet, because they are awaiting the new 2012 SHE figures. And I saw in your little bag there is a preliminary sort of folder showing some of these new figures, but so we are awaiting the full report, which will be on in December. But my proposition is that inclusion of this gender indicator in the Innovation Union scoreboard and as an area gender indicator should be a main conclusion of the European Gender Summit 2012. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those who think we are running over time, they are wrong. We started a little bit late. So therefore we have actually time for 2 questions or something like that. So first I would like to have a question to this speaker, and then I will leave the you had a question before that I cut off. We will have time for that. The first one who I saw was you in the middle there.
Thank you. My name is Sophia Heyer. I'm with Gender Insight, which is an international coalition looking at gender in science, innovation, technology, and engineering. And I also work with Women in Global Science and Technology. I'm based in Canada. Women in Global Science and Technology has been looking at these innovation scoreboards, not just the EU one, but also the World Bank and the OECD and so forth. And I'd like to start by congratulating you on introducing a gender indicator in the innovation scoreboard. I think this is probably the first one in any of the innovation assessments done at that level. And so it's really good news to see an important indicator included. The second question, the question I have is, to what degree is the EU promoting the collection of sex disaggregated data in the other indicators, beyond just university research and student enrollments? Because, you know, there's a huge sex differential in terms of, as we've seen, R&D funding support in terms of venture capital, and in the innovation side of things, which is, you know, enterprise, leadership, access to venture capital, numbers of patents, and so forth. And when we did this work, we found that kind of data is hardly available at all, and yet the data that we did found in non-European countries, there were really large differences according to gender.
Well, the Commission we've been working on this for some few years, and the Commission has recently engaged Deloitte, and they have a big project over 3 years looking into the indicators that has to do with researcher recruitment, researcher production, mobility, co-publication, intersectoral co-publication, co-patenting, and they have, in dialogue with the working group I'm chairing, they have developed some 60-something indicators that can be drawn from existing databases in these fields. And to supplement that, they have made a questionnaire which is sent to all the ministers of education and research in Europe, and they responded. So there is a report, a 2012 report containing 2011 data, and these days the people are filling in the 2013 report with data from 2012. So this is going then to, the idea is that the survey, some of the indicators from the survey will be standardized as indicators that the countries have to report. So, and this goes parallel then and will feed into the ERA indicators and probably also partly into the Innovation Union scoreboard. So the idea is to come up with a detailed indicator system which can map the state of the art and also then the development. And you need those kind of hard data in order to push the politicians and push them to push the institutions in order to do something about this.
I have a final question. It is the lady up there.
Thank you. I have a question to Mr. Borchgrevink. I think that this is, of course, a very good idea, and that I hope that this could be one of the conclusions from the conference, to have this indicator. But I wonder, could you say something more? You said you were waiting for the she figures. Why? I mean, why can't this just be approved? Yeah.
I'm waiting for the key she figures because the people who run the Innovation Union scoreboard say that they are waiting for the she figures, so that they will not include this as an indicator if they don't have better and more recent numbers than 2006 or something, which is the numbers we've had up to now. And the difficulty, the potential difficulty, is that the people running the Innovation Union scoreboard think that the quality of she figures might be too poor to deserve to be included in the Innovation Union scoreboard. So, and if that is the case, we have to brush up the statistics and the delivery of material from each country in order to get the quality of she figures higher. But I'm just saying that this is kind of rumor. Some of them say that this is why we can't put in the figures, but we're pushing. But I really think that we need a statement from a big conference like this, which then can push the politicians, so that the politicians at the European Parliament demand that there should be such an indicator.
Thank you very much. I have to stop here. I will make a short remark at the end, and I think what I have heard, I mean...
We can have one more question.
We can?
Yes.
Oh, I got permission to allow one more question, and then it's a lady out there.
What about now? Is it? Okay, thank you very much. My name is Inés Sánchez de Madariaga. I'm the director of the Women and Science Unit in the Secretary of State of Research and Development in Spain. I'm also co-director of the Gender Innovations Project, directed by Professor Londa Schibinger. And I was wondering whether this indicator, or whether we should have also an indicator that measures not only presence of women, but also how gender is introduced in the content of research. How are we getting to gender in research? That's one first question. And in relationship with this, I would like to get something in the floor, since we are in the European Parliament. I understand that very recently, I think it was yesterday, but I might be wrong, there was a vote here on the resolution on the proposal for the regulation of the Horizon 2020. And that an important amendment that had been proposed precisely on the content of proposals has not been included in the decision. I don't know whether something can be done on this. This is Amendment 274, made by Cristina Gutiérrez, on the content of proposals and how proposals should examine whether responsible research and innovation dimensions are set out in Article 14A, which refers to gender and ethical issues, are relevant, and if they have to be taken into account. So that I leave this on the floor and ask whether something can be done at this point. Thank you.
Well, I think one answer is that the greater the pressure to include things like that, the greater the chance to have it included. So that is another argument for having this indicator thing as a main conclusion. But I think it's no way to have more than one single gender indicator, because the total number of indicators in the Innovation Union scoreboard is 20-something only. So we're happy to have one in, and then we chose the one which we think was the sort of the worst, the thing that really says how bad this is, and that is the indicator we have proposed. So we can't have more, even though that would be, of course, of interest. But in the ERA indicators and also in this Deloitte thing, there are more indicators, and we may have more. So we're open for propositions for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I should say that Professor Buitendijk, she said that there is a momentum. And what I've heard also from the presentations is that there are evidence-based actions going on. But I think that since the university system, they stand for approximately 1/3 of all the research funding in Europe, the organization European Science Foundation or Science Europe in the future, they have about also 1/3 of the financing. I think it's, and of course the Commission, they are very big, but they have maybe between 5 and 10%. I think it's very important that we act together, because if we don't do that, I don't think we can sort of capitalize on the situation we have now. We can really move things forward. So joint actions between these organizations. Then ERC, they are much smaller, but they are like the diamond in our crown in Europe. So it's so important that you help to give hints what to do in order to make it the perfect organization also when it comes to gender issues. Thank you very much for listening.